Black Mountain Institute at UNLV is celebrating its 20th anniversary, and you're invited to free literary programming all year long. Wow. 2 decades of remarkable BMI readings, workshops, and festivals. I've had the honor to experience many of them, sometimes as a participant. So let's celebrate this cultural powerhouse. On October 15th, join BMI at the Vegas Theater Company for Stradio Lab. It's a live comedy podcast that explores the mysteries of straight culture. Then, on November 18th, comedian Maz Drabani will be in conversation at the UNLV Student Union. So go right now and visit blackmountaininstitute.org for more information. Our state legislature only has 120 days every 2 years to pass new laws. And when that deadline comes in June, it is a mad rush to finish where a lot of bills die. But sometimes proposed laws go full-on zombie with a new life through something called the special session. So today on CityCast Las Vegas, we talk with Nevada Current Deputy Editor April Corbin-Gurnis, who explains what to expect since Governor Joe Lombardo has called for a special session now, and what it means when our lawmakers are forced to go into overtime. It's Tuesday, October 14th. I'm David Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. April, the Nevada legislature meets every 2 years for a set 120 days, yet in recent years, we keep hearing about one or even two special sessions to the point where it seems more like a feature than a bug. Why can't they get the work done in the allotted time?
Well, what a great question. I think one of the known problems is that a lot of the big bills, so the high profile ones, the ones that are asking for a lot of money, the ones that are controversial, there's a trend to introduce them really late in the legislative session. So, there's 120 days, but let's introduce all of the important stuff that we really want to argue about in the last 30 days or in the last week.
Is that coming from some sort of weird TikTok challenge that no one could possibly do?
Yeah.
Where does this trend come from?
I think part of it is that some of these bills are being worked out. The details of the bills are being worked out behind the scenes. And then eventually they reach a point where they have to go public and say, all right, we need to move this forward. And then it goes forward. And then guess what? It's still being argued about. And there's new issues that arise. Sometimes I think it's by design, even though they don't want to admit that. It's kind of easier to introduce something as an emergency bill in the last few days of the session and sort of ram it through. That's definitely a strategy.
The ram and jam. Very famous.
The ram and jam. Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons why, but it's a problem for sure.
Well, clearly. And so now we have Governor Joe Lombardo saying, well, we need a special session. First, let me ask you, April, what is the criteria for calling a special session?
There's no criteria. I mean, there's 2 ways to call it, only one of which has been used. It's the governor issuing a proclamation telling the legislature to go back into session. Technically, the legislature can also convene itself if it has a 2/3 sort of proclamation. That's never been used, though, so it's far more common for the governor just to call it. And basically, the governor has to issue a proclamation that says, I'm calling this special session on X date, and here are the topics that they're supposed to talk about. And then that is the agenda for the special session, and they're not allowed to deviate from that.
Okay, and spoiler alert, he hasn't done that yet. He's just basically told us that he's gonna do that.
Correct. I think his exact wording was at some point in the next few months, but it's sort of widely rumored that it's going to be in November, probably the 2nd or 3rd week of November, but they have not figured out the dates yet.
Right, because people have to coordinate schedules. I mean, for whatever
and they have
brilliant
to discuss
reason.
Topics. Yeah.
Yeah. And for whatever brilliant reason, our state capital is up in Carson City, which is not an accessible or easy place to get to for some, especially us down here in the South where most of the population is. That said, question, is it just the governor's whim, or can anything stop or even shape what is on that agenda?
It's always a conversation. The governor is the one who issues the proclamation, but the Governor Lombardo and previous governors, they always talk to the legislative caucus leaders to discuss what's going to be on there. So there needs to be a general consensus, right? Like if you're a governor, you're not going to call a special session unless you know that the party that's in charge, in this case, the Democrats, are willing to work with you on X, Y, and Z issue. They don't want to put non-starters on the agenda because they don't want to waste people's time. It takes, money to, it costs a lot of money to hold the special session every day. And also the public's going to get mad if lawmakers are just up there forever raking up bills and not doing anything. So they try to make these special sessions short and sort of to the point and about issues that they know they can agree on.
Well, I mean, if we're calling so many of these special sessions, basically every legislative season, why not just have a legislature that meets, I don't know, go crazy every year?
Like most grown-ups days? No, it's a good question, but I think that's a tough ask because they can't sort of unilaterally make that decision, right? The lawmakers, some of them probably would be really happy to meet every month or every day. Who knows? And they'd probably be happy to move to sort of an annual schedule. It would sort of be better for them, but they can't sort of decide that on their own. It would take, I think, a constitutional amendment and all of that, and it would require the public's input and sort of approval, I think. We might see a lot of pushback from a populace who doesn't like to pay extra money to hold special sessions and hold sessions. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, that seems to be the main criticism, is that it is expensive and they should have got all their work done. Are there any other criticisms of the use of special sessions that, I don't know, might cause someone like Governor Lombardo to hesitate in using it as freely as it seems to be used?
I don't know if there's other... I don't know if there's other reasons it would make him hesitate. There are other reasons that people are upset about it. I mean, I think it is... like you said, that the governor has sort of said there's going to be a special session, but he hasn't announced when. It's very likely, based off previous special sessions, that we won't know until a day or two beforehand officially. Like people like me or you who are sort of connected to lawmakers who are talking about that, we'll hear the rumors about when it's going to start. And there may be like it's expected to start on Wednesday. But that proclamation could come on the Tuesday beforehand, which for the public doesn't give them much time to try and plan to go up to Carson City to lobby.
Right, because people are still allowed to testify or give
It's still
their comment.
It's public. Yes.
Yeah.
There's not that notice, that lack of advance notice can be really frustrating for people. I mean, if you're thinking about November and December and specifically, you're looking at holiday seasons and people traveling. I have a vacation in November that I'm stressing out about now because I'm going to miss the special session if it's on those days. So it can be frustrating for people who aren't in the legislature and whose plans are not taken into account.
So let's focus on this call for a special session or a spesh sesh that Governor Lombardo made. I mean, early October, he says, we're going to do it. What is he saying that this is based on? Why is he being so ambiguous as to what the topics are? And the final follow-up on that is this typical to be so ambiguous?
It is pretty typical to be publicly ambiguous about special sessions. And I say that because if you're covering the legislature like I am, or if you're a lawmaker, there are a lot of discussions and rumors about what possible topics might happen and might come up. But they usually are pretty silent about it until they issue the proclamation, I think, because it's all negotiations behind the scenes or whatever. So it's not uncommon.
Oh, so who's he talking to? Who's Governor Lombardo negotiating with right now?
So he's talking to Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro and Assembly Speaker Steve Yeager. So those are both Democrats who run those caucuses, and they sort of need they need to be bought into what those topics are going to be.
So what do we think the governor is basing this on, going back to that question?
So the governor's statement that he issued earlier this month was that that the legislature is going to get called into special session to finish unfinished business, I think is what he phrased it.
Say less.
Yes. Yeah. And he has acknowledged back in August, he did an interview with Steve Sebelius on KTNV where he sort of acknowledged, and I think he also acknowledged in his official campaign reelection event that he did, that he wanted to bring back his crime bill. That was a bill that was passed. Two different versions of it were passed, one by the Assembly and one by the Senate, but there was not enough time at the end of the session to reconcile those together and pass a final bill. So he wants to bring that up. He has acknowledged that the film tax credit expansion which would be the largest public subsidy in the state history, is also sort of still on the table. Those are two things he has acknowledged. Nicole Cannizzaro told me in an interview back in August that she believes that the legislature needs to address the federal fallout from the Trump administration and changes there, particularly to SNAP and sort of Medicaid and sort of budget shortfalls that are expected. Cybersecurity with the cyber attack that happened in late August, Cannizzaro has also said, and I think Steve Yeager has also said, that cybersecurity issues should probably be addressed sooner rather than later. And then behind the scenes, everybody is pitching other sort of topics that were in the session, but those are probably the main ones that I've heard.
But ultimately, it's Governor Lombardo who sets that agenda.
Correct. Yes.
But he is being mindful that he doesn't want to put up stuff that is going to fail and waste everyone's time. And he also wants to maybe do a little horse trading right now.
Exactly. So there's going to be a discussion that none of us are privy to that's going to happen where Lombardo wants X bill and, Cannizzaro and the Democrats are willing to give him that, but they want Y. And so there's a lot of that happening.
And that's all immune from public record requests or transparency.
Yeah.
So everyone loves transparency until it's in their backyard.
Hi, I'm Michael Ziviak, Chief Revenue Officer of CityCast. Why do most of us want to learn a new language? It's because we want to speak it out in the real world with real people. Babbel gets you there fast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after she graduates, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. I know, she's spoiled, but that's on me. I'll be honest, my Spanish right now is pretty much tops out at ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? But when we get there, I want to actually talk to people, order food, and really connect with the locals, not just stumble through the basics. That's why I'm starting with Babbel. Learning a language with Babbel is all about small steps, big wins, and progress you can actually track and feel. And with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit perfectly into my day, whether it's between meetings or while I'm having coffee in the morning. I'm really excited to start picking up real-world Spanish before our trip so we can experience Spain in a more meaningful way. Right now, Babbel has a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/citycast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
All right. Well, you talked about a couple of things that are potentially going to be on the agenda. These are things that I've seen in other reporting as well, but none as good as yours, April. I love your reporting on this topic. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but I certainly have that subjective belief. So let's talk about that film bill. Why didn't it make it out of session, and why is it getting a new life?
That was another one of those instances where the legislation for that was sort of written already because it was introduced back in 2023, right? But it changed forms. There were two different bills that were introduced in the regular session earlier this year, which I think caused a lot of
confusion
and hiccups, I think, behind the scenes because you had two Democratic lawmakers proposing two different proposals that are backing two different projects. And I think that split a lot of people on an issue where people were already split on,
Yeah. And for listeners, one's the Lang bill, and that was associated with which film production company?
Yeah. So Roberta Lang had a bill that was related to a studio that would have been in the Southwest part of town attached to UNLV's Harry Reid Technology Project over in the Southwest side. So that was, I think, called Nevada Film Studios, if I recall correctly. And then the other bill was attached, or is still attached, to Summerlin Studios, which is the Warner Brothers and Sony project. That's the bigger one and the one that got further.
The one the Howard Hughes Corporation's behind.
Correct. That's the Howard Hughes one also. And that's the one that got further, and that's the one that's largely expected to be reintroduced in a special, I think.
And who's the champion of that bill in the legislature?
That's Sandra Hardegee. She's an assemblywoman.
Who's not coming back?
Correct. Yeah, she has announced that she is not running for re-election. Also noteworthy, the people that we've talked about already, Steve Yeager and Nicole Cannizzaro, the leaders of the Democratic caucuses, they're also not running for re-election. So we have a lot of people that are going to, this will be their last session, so they can, go out with a bang maybe.
Oh, go out with a bang that could cost the Nevada taxpayers, like you said, the largest subsidy in history, and then not have to face voters on that.
Yeah, $1.8 million was the total.
$1.8 billion?
Yeah.
Wow.
With a B.
All right.
Sorry.
So what are its chances in the special session? I mean, what is the new life conversation all about?
I don't know. Sony and Warner Brothers, they have not made any sort of public pushes before that. During the regular session, they were running ads. There were sort of things that were, or I don't know if they were running, some group was running ads sort of coordinated
I saw
with that.
The unions were involved in that too.
And the labor unions, the Nevada Independent reported actually, I think last week, that a coalition of labor unions has created a PAC to throw money at this issue and sort of inform the public about the great value of it. So there is a sort of public push from them. What it's looking like from legislators, it's hard to tell. Like, as someone who was there when the assembly vote was happening, it passed by the slimmest margin possible. And even that, when it was up for vote, people didn't know whether or not it was going to pass. It was like one of those things that was people didn't know. And so I think we'll see a lot of that. Where people stand, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much wheeling and dealing has happened behind the scenes to get people back on board with that.
Any major forces inside or outside of the legislature that are taking the opposite opinion? In other words, keep it dead? There are some of the more progressive groups in town have been vehemently opposed to it. Battleborn Progress has been really vocal about the lack of return on this. And the Nevada State Education Association has been really opposed to this because they're opposed to subsidies, sort of large ones in general, saying that we need to, focus on education. Those have been, I think, the loudest voices against it. But it's really one of those issues where anyone internal
splits.
who's kind of taking that up, who also doesn't like the maths, as they say.
There are some people. There's senators like Dina Neal, who's very critical of large subsidies and their return on investment in general. And then you've got sort of the Republicans, or some Republicans, who are really against sort of big corporate handouts and say that big corporations don't need that. So it's really an issue that splits. And one of the splits also is that this film studio is for Southern Nevada. So a lot of the Northern Nevada representatives on both sides are like, why should I back this? Like, my voters.
Oh, they've got their own subsidies. They subsidize that whole giga battery thing. But that
was a decade ago, They're looking at it now. For me, yes. For you guys.
Shine in the spotlight of Hollywood.
Yeah, so there's a lot.
All right, April, let's switch some gears here to the governor's crime bill. I've seen a lot of reports that crime is going down overall in the major categories. Indeed, Sheriff Kevin McMahill has announced that a key reason why people should re-elect him is because he has been so good at keeping crime down and has no seeming qualms with the way that the crime bills are written now, the reforms. So why focus on this bill? Why is Lombardo obsessed with a crime bill?
I think the prevailing theory that a lot of people have is that he ran on crime, right? He ran on criticizing some of the criminal justice reforms that Democrats pushed and got through in 2019 and 2021 when they had control up in Carson. So he sort of wants to come off as strong on crime. He is up for re-election next year. So I think that is a factor in play. But I think that's the sort of prevailing theory on that. But also, there's a lot of components of that.
Is it all just show? Does he have any data to back him up? Did you see that in the regular session?
They did come up, and there were, yes. There were I don't have those stats in front of me.
No, and I don't expect you to.
Yeah.
I'm just saying generally.
Yeah, I think there were signs. I think they did present a few of that. It was a lot of anecdotes, right? It's a lot of the high profile cases that have come up where, there was that case a few years ago now where a teacher was sort of brutally attacked by a student.
Right.
So part of that crime bill included, attacks against teachers in there. So,
And then
so
recently,
stuff like that.
we saw, another unfortunate situation where a school child was crossing by school and was hit by an alleged drunk driver. And then Lombardo immediately came out. This is why I need to fix things. I need even more
Exactly.
penalties on DUI. And yet, if one looks at it, Nevada has some of the most stringent DUI laws already. And there's never been, to my understanding, a correlation between even harsher penalties, like throw everyone in prison for a DUI, and
Yeah.
less DUIs on the street. There's plenty of other things that he could be focusing on, yet he doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Making streets more safe, putting dram shop laws into place, putting breath interlocutory devices in cars. I mean, so many things that would actually reduce DUIs, and yet they focus on crime. Is it all show, April?
There's a lot of people who think that, but it's hard. Like when you talk about stats and crime actually going down and what actually works, putting facts like that and figures and data like that often doesn't feel real when compared to a mom who goes to testify and says, my 12-year-old is not here. And it's
the power
because
of the statistically insignificant but gut-wrenching emotional story.
The emotional weight of it sort of tends to reign supreme, and it makes people feel better, right? Because a lot of bills are about
vengeance. Vengeance has that great comeback feeling. All right, so you mentioned a couple other guesses of what would be on the agenda for the special session. Any that you want to talk about that you either mentioned or haven't mentioned yet?
I do actually. Could we talk about the crime bill still? Can I mention something else?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm interested
No.
in it. Obviously, how did it get derailed in the first place? Didn't they come up with a giant compromise?
They did. Well, I don't know that I would call it a big compromise. That was one of those bills that was being amended right up till the end of the session, and one of the perhaps sticking points of that bill, and one of the reasons why I think it's expected to come back is because of the provisions about reestablishing the Las Vegas Strip Resort Corridor Court. That was a big issue that sort of got put back in there, and something that clearly the casinos and the resorts want, which entailed means that it's something that a lot of lawmakers want for various reasons. So I think that's also something sort of worth mentioning, that's going to be something that comes up with that.
And just real briefly, that is a court which was designed but greatly criticized for sort of quote unquote expediting matters that occur on the Strip. But the ACLU was very clear that they felt portions of that were unconstitutional. It sort of faded away.
Yes, so that is a battle that's going to come up again, I expect, and a lot of people are also expecting that.
Well, yeah. I mean, they just need to make the Strip its own city so that it has its own rules and they don't apply to much else.
That's a great suggestion.
Well, we're
put that in there, Lombardo. No.
Trickle down on. Was there anything else you want to say about the why the governor's crime bill didn't even get a vote in the 2025 regular session?
I think that was a victim of sort of too many last minute amendments, and also it ran out of time because it was also, I think, if I recall correctly, it was up for a vote. It was on the agenda. It was there, but then there was a whole big scene and a sort of grandstanding about a sort of separate issue, and it sort of got pushed into there. So there were a lot of factors in there. But again, that was another bill that didn't have hearings until the last few days of the session. So had they talked about the crime bill in February or March or April or May, there might have been time to work some of those details out.
So when do you think that we're going to know more about who kind of got what on the agenda and when the legislature is going to meet? Is there a time frame that they have to deal with?
There's no timeline for when that could happen. It could literally be Lombardo saying today that there will be a special session tomorrow. Realistically, if you're following news, if you're following reporters who cover the legislature, there will be rumors and people will probably start suggesting it sooner and you'll have some sort of notice. But in terms of a headline that says this is when it's going to be, you're not going to see much of it. And I'll mention that one of the reasons that probably happens is because lawmakers and statewide officials like the governor and attorneys general they have to pause campaign donations. Solicitations for that as soon as the day after the proclamation is declared. So in case you're wondering why there's an incentive to not give much notice, there is a rule there's a law in Nevada revised statute that says that people cannot solicit or accept donations 15 days before a special session, or if nobody gives 15 days notice before a special session, or immediately once it's called. So they can fundraise up until the last second, then they have to stop. The special session happens, and then the candidates and elected officials are not allowed to campaign and solicit donations for 15 days after the special session.
Wow.
Which is also why...
Interesting twist.
Yes. And that's probably also why November is looked at as an ideal time for that, right? Because if you have it in November, then your 15-day after that you can't solicit donations, that hits Thanksgiving where people aren't giving much money anyway, and it goes into December a little bit, and then
they're giving money to hopefully nonprofits that are helping out what the legislature is unable to accomplish because
or
it's
Santa
only 120
or whatever,
days every
yes,
2
exactly.
years.
So it's a good time for that. In case you're wondering why it's probably going to be November and not January, that's I think a good explanation there.
Makes sense. All right. Well, April Corbin-Gurnis, as always, thanks for keeping your eyes on these developments, and thanks for coming on CityCast Las Vegas to share it.
Thanks for having me.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, why not go tell a friend? You could also rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. Don't forget, you can support this show and get some great perks, like Tony the Tiger says, great, by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, enjoy breakfast and stay lucky.